Welcome back to the I Am Winter Solstice Symposium, the 13th annual. And I'm not sure, but I believe that my friend Aimee Mosco, who's sitting here with me, was at that first one in my yard in 2011 when it was way before people were doing any kind of recordings or anything. And I took it upon myself to get these 30 people from around the world to give these prayers. And then I decided to do a live simulcast broadcast. I mean, this was years before anyone was like having Zooms and simulcast broadcasts and anything. And there was about 30 of us in the yard, and we just had a wonderful time with it. And for some reason, I thought I needed to do it every year after that. And Aimee's always been a wonderful friend and participant. She could see where the wind work was going long before I really knew. I knew there was something, but I didn't know, and she could. And now she's put the same divine attention to horses. And I'll let her take it from there.
Okay. Yes. And Renee, I think if I remember correctly, it might have been the winter solstice when we set your backyard on fire. I might bring this up every year when you talk about that, but anyway, everything was okay. Yes, but this brings back memories when we meet on the solstice, or the winter solstice every year. Okay, so anyway, I'm Aimee. If you don't know me, I'm an intuitive channel and a seer, a healing facilitator, author, and columnist. And then I co-created a company called Intentional Healing Systems. And so I've documented about 7,000 pages of channeled information at this point, or maybe more. I think I've lost track at this point, but I've curated about 7 different alternative healing systems. And I teach 20 different classes, or 20 plus different classes. So I use my intuition pretty regularly. So my psychic senses have become they're pretty strong, but there's always room for improvement. And I'm always looking to peel back that next layer and see what else is coming. So mostly I've worked with people, right? Over the course of my healing, facilitating journey, I've mostly worked with people until about 5 years. I discovered completely by accident, that I have the ability to communicate with animals and collaborate with them. Okay. And I told the story last year, actually, when Renee invited me to do the I Am Symposium. I told the story of my journey, getting familiar with my animal communication abilities. And I'll just recap a little bit. I'm not going to tell the story again, because you probably heard it if you were here last year, or, you can read about it on my social media pages. But I'll just give a recap. So my husband he's a military vet, a war veteran. And the Coachella Valley Rescue here, which is a local Coachella Valley Horse Rescue here, which is a local horse rescue, they do a veterans program. So we were invited out to the horse rescue to meet the horses and learn about the program and see the facility. And when we went out there, as I was, communicating with one of the horses. I mean, I say communicating, I didn't realize that I could communicate, but I was sending energy to one of the horses, and he was sending it back to me. And then I heard a voice in my head that said, "Brace yourself." And I thought, still after all these years of, psychic communication and channeling and all that, I still have these moments of thinking that I'm just a complete crazy person, especially when I'm hearing voices in my head. So I had that a little bit like, wow, I'm not sure if the horse just talked to me or if I'm just a crazy person. But anyway, I heard something. And then when I asked the question back, like, why brace myself? And the horse said, earthquake. So I was like, wow, I think we're going to have an earthquake. And sure enough, about, 2 or 3 minutes later, the earth started to shake and rumble, and it was a good shaker. So that was very interesting. That was the first experience I had like that, where the communication was so clear from an animal. And it took me a while to realize that he wasn't just asking me to pay attention to the earthquake. He was actually asking me to pair my energy with his and send like healing energy to the epicenter, to the people around where the epicenter was. And it took me a little while to figure that piece out. But he actually pointed his body to the epicenter of the earthquake, the direction of the epicenter. So anyway, this was all very intriguing to me. But then COVID hit, and everything was locked down, and so we weren't moving about very freely. So I didn't go back to the rescue till a couple of years later, when things started to open up, and I was really reflecting on that experience and thinking that I wanted to pursue it. I wanted to explore that a little more and just figure out where it would take me. So I started volunteering at the Coachella Valley Horse Rescue after I went to one of their open houses. I felt such a pull. So I started volunteering there. And my thought was that I would go and I would talk to the animals and I would ask them what sort of healing work they needed from me, figure out how I could help them, because these are rescue horses, they have some issues. Anyway, that was just the tip of the iceberg. What I thought it was going to be and what it became were two very different things. Right. So I discovered pretty quickly that these rescue horses were wisdom keepers, and they had so much to teach me. It wasn't about me, blowing in on the breeze and just like coming to save the day. I was really going to learn. I was going to up the ante with my healing abilities and my skills. And they knew what they were doing. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that I felt a pull to go there. But as I look back in retrospect, I realized that the horses kind of set a trajectory for me. They knew what they were doing, and they knew that they were going to teach me. So, in these 2 years that I've been working with them, I've come to regard them as masters and probably the most profound spiritual teachers that I've ever had the pleasure to work with. So it's been a very interesting journey. So let me just talk about how this relates to oracle power. Okay, since this symposium is about oracle power. What happened was, as I started working with these horses, I started noticing some consistencies in what the horses were asking of me and from me, and how they were wanting to work with me, different actions that they were asking me to take. So I started recording these things and really paying attention to what they were. And as I identified them, I started to keep a list. And then when my list grew, I realized that I could create an oracle deck, so other people could actually work from this list as well. And they didn't need to have channeling abilities or, any sort of special training with their intuitive abilities. They could just simply rely on the oracle deck and trust in their, higher wisdom and in the horses or any animals to guide them to this place of communication based on these consistent communications that I was getting. So I created this oracle deck, and I created a training to go with it. And I've taught it to some of the volunteers at the rescue, and so they're able to use it with the horses. But I've actually, like I said, created a training program so people can use this program with their animals, with their own personal animals, or if they work with rescue animals, they can use it with them as well. So I'm going to show you the card deck. But not just yet. First, I want to share some of my stories with the horses, and I'm going to share their pictures. And as you're looking at the pictures, see if you can tap into the energy of the horses. Because like I said, these animals are masters, right? And even though it may not seem possible to connect with their energy just from a picture, I can tell you from experience that it's very possible. And they're probably listening right now, and they understand every single word I'm saying here. All right, so let me start with this beautiful horse by the name of Romeo. I'm going to share his picture to the screen, if you'll bear with me 1 second. Okay. All right, so this is Romeo. Romeo's on the left. It almost looks like he's looking in a mirror because the horse he's looking at, Jackie Sue, she looks very similar to him. Right, so Romeo and Jackie Sue, actually, unfortunately, they are no longer with us. They left their bodies, both of them left their bodies this year, but they left an indelible mark in my heart, and I know in the hearts of the other volunteers at the rescue. But what Romeo taught me was this. Okay, and Romeo's story is a little different. He wasn't a rescue horse. He was actually given to the rescue, I say as a gift, because he was older and his owner wanted him to live in a place where he would get lots of attention and he would be loved, throughout his retirement. So Romeo was given to the rescue as a gift, and he got just exactly that. I mean, the volunteers gave him so much love. He was with children all the time, and he got so much attention. So anyway, that's a little bit of Romeo's story. But when I would go see Romeo, I'd sit outside his enclosure and I would close my eyes and he would show me a picture of someone. I didn't know who this person was, or I should say, I didn't know until later on who this person was, but I could feel that he was asking me to work with him, to send energy to this person. It was like I wanted to give him energy and help soothe the pains in his body. Pardon, my dogs are weighing in here. They like to be part of this as well. Anyway, I wanted to help him soothe the pains in his body, but he would always ask me to help this person, to send healing energy to this person first before we got to him, which I thought was really interesting. But what I learned from him over the course of time. Oh, and by the way, the picture of the person that he would show me, I actually saw a picture of this woman later on, and it was his owner that had given him to the rescue. So when I saw her picture, I couldn't believe it. It was like, I realized that this was the person that he was showing me in the pictures he was sending to my mind. But what I learned from him is that he had a purpose. He had a purpose to heal. That was his job in this world, and he knew it very well. And he wanted me to help him satisfy that purpose. He wanted to invite me in to experience his purpose with him. And that was a deep learning moment for me, to understand that animals are highly conscious. In fact, more conscious than human beings in a lot of cases, and they understand what their purpose is. So that was a really eye-opening experience for me. So that's Romeo. Now, I'm going to share a picture of Grace with you. Okay, Grace, she's still with us. She's a beauty, and she is a rescue horse. Okay, she's got a story, and she's very sensitive and very shy. If anyone goes to her enclosure, oftentimes I've just kind of stood back and observed what she does and how she behaves when people approach. She goes to the center of her pen, which is way out of reach of hands. I mean, you can't stick your arms through those bars and touch her when she's in the center of her pen. So it's clear that she doesn't really want to be touched. She'll tolerate it. I mean, she doesn't have a mean bone in her body, so she's not one to bite or to buck or anything like that. But it's clear that she's not entirely comfortable with being touched. So one day I was standing outside her enclosure and I really wanted to touch her. I mean, I love this horse so much that I want to wrap my arms around her and I want to scratch her and I want to hug her. But, I know that's not her thing. But I saw that when she felt me, and she felt my love for her, and I saw her take a step forward, but then she kind of wavered and she took a step back again. It was like she was saying to me, I want to come, I want to let you touch me, but something's holding me back. So I asked her, I said, what is this? What is this about? Tell me, communicate with me. And she told me that because her vibration is so high, she's so pure, that anyone who has a vibration that's lower than hers, which is probably everybody except for maybe a small child, it's actually physically uncomfortable and even a little bit painful to be touched by someone that has a vibration that's so different than hers. So, and I understand that, and I wanted to honor that, but I said to her, what can I do to make you more comfortable? How can I meet you? I don't have to touch you. I want to, but I don't have to. But how can I meet you? And so I closed my eyes and I just stood there and I breathed deeply for a few minutes. And she sent me this image of a ladder and in my mind. And I could hear her I could hear this voice telling me what to do, like take a step up. So I put my foot on that first rung and I stepped up, and I felt like my heart opened. I felt like this rush of energy in my heart chakra. And the light got a little brighter in my head around me. And then she invited me to take another step up. So I went up to the second rung, and the same thing happened. Like my heart opened a little more and the light got a little brighter around me. So we continued doing this, and I climbed this ladder in my visualization with her until I got to the seventh rung. And when I was at the seventh rung, I felt like my heart was exploding. I mean, I was just so filled with joy. And the light in my head, in my visualization, was just blinding. And then I felt it. I felt her tap me with her nose. I didn't hear her. My eyes were closed. I didn't know what she was doing. I didn't see her approaching me, but I felt her nose tap me. And when I opened my eyes, she pushed her head against my chest, and she just stayed there. And she let me scratch her and rub her and touch her. And it was just this beautiful moment of innocence and purity. But I learned something really important. I learned that I can't expect these animals to meet me where I am. I have to expect myself to meet them where they are. I have to bring myself up and elevate my vibrations. If I really want to elevate the relationship that I have with them, then I have to bring myself up to their level. So, and I use this daily. I call it bright light, big heart. Right. And I revisit that visualization of climbing the ladder. And each step, it's like bright light, big heart, bright light, big heart, brighter light, bigger heart, until I get to that seventh rung where I'm just feeling this pure joy and I'm seeing this blinding light. Then I know I'm ready. I'm ready to do whatever I plan to do next, whether it's to do healing work or channeling or to work with the horses or work with people. I know I'm ready. I know I'm in the right space. So that's Grace and her wisdom. Okay. So I'm going to share another picture with you, and this is Buttercup. So Buttercup. Now, Buttercup has a pretty tough story. She's a rescue, and she's really had a rough go. So she's a little tough around the edges, and understandably so. I mean, she's been wronged by humans. She doesn't really trust humans. She's really good with children, but adults, she doesn't trust us. And, rightly so, based on her experiences. So I didn't know Buttercup's story when I met her. But when I went over to her enclosure, she reached her head through the bars and she kind of tried to nip at me. Now, it didn't feel too serious, but it was definitely a warning, like, you better back up, lady. I don't know you. So this is a, 1,200-pound animal. So I took the warning seriously, and I stood out of range. And I asked her, in my mind, I asked her what that was about. And what she showed me was this brick wall. And it was as high as I could see and as wide as I could see in my visualization. I mean, it represented a complete impasse. And I knew, I understood that I was going to have to dismantle this brick wall if Buttercup and I were going to be friends, if we were going to communicate. And it took me about 8 months to build up trust with Buttercup so I could actually touch her. And what a glorious day that was when I actually put my hands on Buttercup for the first time. And what I noticed is, every morning when I do my, my daily rituals and I prepare for my day, I connect with the horses. And when I would connect with Buttercup, she was very different in spirit. She would show me things that I wouldn't get from her when I'd go out and visit her in the physical. But Buttercup would show me her belly, like she wanted her belly scratched. And there was one particular spot, it's kind of like in her armpit underneath, where she always wanted to be scratched in my visualization. So that one day when she actually let me touch her, I stood back from her about a foot, but I used my hand like I was scratching her, like energy scratching her, until she she started to show me that she was relaxing. Like she put her head down, even though I wasn't actually touching her body and I was energy scratching her, she was still feeling it and enjoying it. And then I got up the courage to actually stick my hand out close and touch her. And she didn't even flinch. She let me scratch her. And she lets me know now when she does and she doesn't want to be scratched, but we built up that level of trust for me to actually touch her, which is, I mean, it's like one of my greatest accomplishments in life, I feel, being able to actually touch Buttercup. But there's something else I want to share about Buttercup. So Buttercup is this very strong horse. She's got this, troubled past, and she's very protective of the other horses at the rescue. Right now, the way they live is a little bit different than how they live in the wild. They all have their own separate enclosures, and they don't roam around free, whereas they would in the wild, and their relationships are a little different. But Buttercup still considers herself to be the lead mare, so she's the one that looks over, the herd. And so one day when I was visiting her, as we were building trust, I was acknowledging her as the lead mare, and she showed me, she was kind of like the den mother and the disciplinarian and all of that. And I said, and I would ask her permission, in trying to honor her, I would ask her permission before I would work with the other horses. She was my first visit and my last visit when I went to the rescue to work with the horses. But I was asking her about, okay, well, is it okay to work with this horse? And what should I do with this horse? And just kind of getting a game plan with her. And she shook her head and kind of blew out this big breath and jumped back like I was offending her. And so I backed up. I took a step back and I heard her say, keep going, right? And I could feel her sending a signal to my heart again. And I felt that feeling again, like my heart opening. And she kept saying to me, back up, back up. And as I was backing up, my heart was swelling and my heart field was getting bigger. And she kept saying, back up, back up, back up, until I was like practically on the outskirts of the property. I mean, I could just barely see her. And then she said, okay, this is how big your heart field needs to be for you to work with these horses effectively, for you to work with my horses effectively. And I thought, wow, well, that's big, right? That was really something. But it also gave me another clue as to how these horses work and how pure they are and how big their heart fields are to create the level of healing that they create. Okay, whether it's in each other or whether it's in human beings. This is how big the heart field needs to be. All right, so these are some of the things that the horses have taught me. And, I've taken this information and really taken it to heart. And these things that they've taught me, I've added to my daily practice. I make sure that every morning I'm expanding my heart field and I'm climbing that ladder and I'm keeping myself in a place of purity. Now, I'll never be a horse, at least not in this lifetime. And I'll never be able to generate the power that they can generate because their heart fields are so huge. But I can aspire to that. And I can try really hard to grow my heart field and operate like a horse, or, operate in the way that I've learned from these horses. So again, like, as a little piece of the wisdom that I've gotten from these horses, I've created a daily practice, right? And this is something that I use often. And this is the free gift that I want to share with everybody. I'm going to share the PDF to the screen of what you'll get as a participant, or what you'll be offered as a participant. But it's basically like a prep work practice for anything that you do, whether you're going to use an oracle deck, or you're going to do energy work, or you're going to just go to a business meeting and you want to be your best. This is a very simple practice that you can engage in, and it's inspired by the work that I've done with these horses. So let me share this. Okay, well, before, I want to recap a little bit. Okay, so just going back to some of the information that I shared with you about the horses and what they taught me. So Romeo helped me to understand that there's a purpose, like we all have a purpose, right? And it's important to be thinking about this and connecting with these special abilities that you have, these innate abilities and your power as a healer, or as an influencer, whatever it is that your purpose is in this world. It's important to connect with that to be your best. Okay. Grace taught me to raise my vibrations and sensitivity and to be fully present in a divine space where I was working. Okay, so this divine space, this divine workspace is really important. Okay, and being at your highest vibration in this divine workspace is very important. Okay, and then Buttercup also taught me to create the sacred space of operation. Okay, to be at my best, to be paying attention to what was happening in my heart field, to be paying attention to what I was emanating to those around me, right? So all of these horses, they demonstrated these things with consistency, all right? And they all also demonstrated the importance of keeping balance, because whenever I worked with a horse, even if I was just doing energy work on them, they never just received without giving. I always felt something come back to me and my heart field expand. So this is really important. They understood the concept of balance. And sometimes I think probably a lot of you who are watching this are healers, and you probably experience this, that sometimes you give more than you receive, but it's important to keep the balance of energy flowing. Okay. You need to keep rejuvenating and regenerating yourself as you're giving. Okay. So the horses reminded me of this, that they would never let me be out of balance with them. They were always going to balance the scales. Okay, so I'm going to share a couple of things to the screen. I'm going to just show you my Oracle deck, okay, so you can get a visual of it. And then I'm going to share the tool and go over it, so you don't look at it and say, what the heck is this? I just give you a brief description of what each of the items are on the PDF. Okay. Okay, so this is my Oracle deck. That'll be the first picture that comes up. Hold on one second. Here we go. Bear with me. Okay, so this is my Oracle deck. You can see I actually use it as a universal Oracle deck, and it goes with multiple classes and systems that I teach. But each one of these symbols and each one of these numbered and color-coded cards go with a specific action, whether it's pairing, my energy with a horse's energy to send someone healing work, or whether it's just holding space. Each card has an action associated with it, okay, in terms of communicating with the animals and what it is that they want me to do with them or for them. Okay, so now to the tool. Here's a little explanation of why it's important to prepare your energy field for optimal operation. And then there's an exercise here but I want to tell you what each of the actions are in the exercise. Okay, and this is these are 7 specific elements to address when you're intending to consciously manage the function of your energy field. Okay, and when you're preparing yourself for operating at this optimal high vibrating level, you're going to want to set a sacred space in which to conduct your energy work, okay, or just to conduct yourself. And then decide which kinds of pure divine energies you're going to allow into the sacred space. Okay, maybe it's only frequencies that keep you in a space of love, okay, or a space of joy, or a space of clarity. Then you're going to clear the energy from your sacred workspace that don't align with whatever you said you're going to allow in the workspace. So maybe if it's a space of clarity and there's some muddiness, here's where you clear that muddiness from your sacred space. Okay, you purify it. And then you're going to create a secure line between your energy field and pure divine source. Okay, the highest divine authority, the highest expression of divinity, because you only want to receive information and energy to that sacred space from pure divine sources. You don't want anything, any distorted sources of information pumping energy to you. Okay, you want to make sure that you're only receiving from these divine sources. Okay, and then next you're going to align with, embrace your divine power that is yours to claim. All right. You are powerful. You have this huge heart field. You're creating this huge heart field and you are powerful. Claim that. Okay. And then next is balancing the energy flow that comes in with the energy flow that goes out and vice versa, keeping balance. And then lastly, exercising your mastery through integration and application of your wisdom. Everything that you've learned, everything that you know, everything that you've studied, you want to use that information in this sacred workspace as you're creating whatever it is that you're creating or affecting or using or doing throughout your day. Okay, so the next page is you're going to start with a clear intention, whatever it is. I choose to use my oracle deck to receive spiritual guidance in the highest and most divinely truthful expression, right? Because you want to get truth. When you're using any sort of divination tool, you want to state your intention to receive only truth. And then you just follow the steps. Okay, there are invocations and statements that you can make. You can adjust them so they feel like the right language to you. But these are suggestions to cover each one of those 7 basic elements that prepare you for operating in this optimal vibration as you carry yourself through your day. Okay, and then the last part of this document is this is an article that I wrote for Coachella Valley Weekly, and it's about animals. Okay, I'm going to take that down. All right. So that's what I have for you today. You can reach me on social media if you have any questions. I know a lot of people are really interested in animal communication right now. There are even some groups on social media that you can join and post pictures of your animals and ask, for practicing animal communicators to give you some information and vice versa. So I would encourage you to look for these groups because it's really heartwarming to build that muscle. You're muted, Renee.
Well, because I'm speechless.
That's not true.
I know I am. That's probably one of my favorite presentations for today. And, the horses had a lot to do with it.
Absolutely.
They were like, thinking like, how big is my heart and how fast would I get probably bucked right on out of the cage. But that's okay. But it gives me something to aspire to. And I'm very honored to call you a friend as well as know just how wonderful you are as a healer. And if you guys don't know Aimee's work, definitely check it out. And this comes to the end of our presentations for today, but it doesn't come to the end of the day because we are offering something really unique and special this year called Oracle Zoom Circles. And people say, where is it on Zoom? Well, this is your opportunity to join on Zoom coming up at 5:00 and actually meet and greet with other people, talk about some of the things you talked about today, and actually take it for a spin and see how it's working. And Aimee, you're just a beautiful soul, and I love growing with you. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. I always look forward to this, and I am so grateful for the opportunity, Renee. Thank you, my friend.